Welcome back, everyone. Hope you're doing well. So today I'm going to do a blacktail deer shed hunting tips video. I spent some time writing everything down, gathering my thoughts, um, just taking notes while I'm actually out shed hunting of things I do and things I look for. And I'm going to try and put them all in one spot into this video, and hopefully it's helpful for maybe some new shed hunters. Hopefully you get something out of this and you learn a thing or two. And if I've forgotten to say anything, any obvious stuff, or you've got tips yourself that I haven't mentioned, I'd love to hear about them. And yeah, feel free to throw them in the comments. And yeah, I'll definitely have a look at those and hope you enjoy. So the first thing I would do is look for big timber. So you can see around me how it's the big fir trees. It's awesome wintering habitat for black-tailed deer around here anyways. You also want to look for ideally south-facing slopes, just because they get the most sun, and snow melts off sooner in the spring, and just a bit nicer for a black-tailed buck to spend the winter on those faces. I would recommend following game trails. One, you can find antlers on game trails because those are the routes that the deer travel, but they'll also lead you to bedding and feeding areas. So when you get into those bedding and feeding areas, you want to slow right down and have a good look around for the sheds that might fall off the deer's heads while they're laying in their bed. And those ones are easy to find. There's thousands and thousands of beds around all the mountains, I'm sure, but some of them are going to hold antlers. So you just got to keep traveling until you find those beds and then check them out. Feeding areas as well. The game trail should lead you to some good feeding areas, and the bedding areas probably won't be too far away. But if you can find whatever vegetation your deer like to eat in your area, I would skirt the outsides and the edges of those areas, because sometimes I found nice antlers just sitting right beside the shrubs in the bush that the blacktails are feeding on, right? You can tell they're just sitting there munching away, and they shake their head and the antler pops off right there. So not always terribly hard to find if you can find bedding areas and feeding areas, and just do loops and grids in there and just look every nook and cranny. You definitely don't want to be moving too fast. You want to be moving very slow. So I personally take like 3 to 5 steps and I'll stop. And then I'll look down. I'll look all around me. I'll take note of bushes that are beside me, logs, game trails, beds. Just scan 360, go slow, and always look at your feet. Don't kid yourself. I guarantee you're walking by antlers, and it's embarrassing sometimes that you're literally standing right beside them and you can't see them. There was one time I sat in a deer bed, ate my entire lunch, looked to my right, and I reached out and touched it, and there was a brown 2-point, pretty good 2-point, sitting there in the bed that I was eating lunch in, and I didn't notice it right beside me. It's ridiculous. So take your time, 3 to 5 steps, move super slow, stop, look 360, look down, and don't assume that you're catching everything right away. A new little tip that I just picked up recently myself is paying attention to ridges. Depending where you are on the mountain, a lot of times, you have a prevailing wind ripping up the mountain in the winter all day. And I don't imagine a deer is going to enjoy in the middle of winter sitting there, just the wind blowing on them constantly. So something I've been trying this year and it paid off for me recently is looking for ridges. So if I find a ridge that's maybe not even necessarily south facing, maybe the south facing slope is what's getting wind, go on the inside of that ridge and look for beds. And that's how I found a pretty nice 4-point a couple of weeks ago. Is you could it makes sense. Like, why would the deer want to sit there on top of the ridge or on the south facing slope getting just ripped on by the wind when he could cross over and sit on the other side of the ridge and be totally protected from the wind? So yeah, look at it that way too, right? Like, just because it's not south facing, is there any shelter or protection that terrain provides? Maybe. So you never know. It's always worth just popping your head in there quick and just having a quick look. You might find one. Talked a little bit about gridding and looping. Yeah, like, I can't stress enough, especially in broken terrain, like on the ground, like all these dead logs and everything. Every one of those deadfall logs could hide an antler. So if you think you're in a zone where bucks are hanging out, where they were bedding, spending the winter, you need to loop in there and grid, because man, like even a big antler is pretty small, and you could easily walk right by it if there's something blocking your line of sight, and you'd never know it was there. So grid and loop. Looping is good because it gives you an opportunity to look at the same ground from a different perspective, right? Like I said, if there's a rock or a log hiding something, an antler, if you look at it from the other side, obviously, you're probably going to see it, but you're never going to get to the other side of that object, that log or that rock or that bush, if you're not going on the other side. So looping is a good way to force yourself to get different perspectives. And that brings me to tracking your lines. Like, if you think about it, if you walk the same line every time you come shed hunting, you may find something on the first pass, but then you're never going to find anything again because you've already walked the same spot. Makes sense? So don't walk the same lines twice. You need to like, you can walk similar lines, but like I said, because an antler's so small, it could be hiding 5 feet that way or 10 feet that way or whatever. So if you're convinced there might be a shed in the area, for sure, work it, but never walk your same line twice. And the best way to do that, because like I said, like, the terrain looks the same everywhere, trust me, and it funnels you sometimes. So you're going to end up not meaning to, but you're just going to keep walking the same spots. So that's where your little GPS app on your phone, whatever one you want to use, as long as it can track your movements and your lines, and you got a little record of where you've been. And all you got to do is stay off that line. Every time you think you're on it, pull out your phone, and more often than not, you realize that you're actually like on you're on a track you've already walked like 3 times. So it forces you to break out of that pattern, that routine, and keep covering new ground, because that's going to increase your chances just covering new ground. So you really should think like a big buck. Where would a big buck want to spend the winter, and why? So you want to be looking for areas that have shelter from the elements, from the snow and the wind and the rain. That's where these big fir trees come into play. Summer, he's got lots of food, and again, these big trees provide that as well, in addition to other things. Does he have access to water easily? Is he staying away from predators? Does he have like a nice bench or a knob or something that, he can have the advantage over a predator coming in, and he's able to bail out and have a good escape route? Look for those sort of things. Like, you're going to see lots of beds throughout the woods, but they're not all big buck beds, I don't think. And a lot of times the big buck beds you do find make a lot of sense, because you stand there in the bed and you look, and he's got a view of everything. He's got the wind coming up to him. He can smell predators coming. Ideally, nothing sneaks up on him, and he can just bail out. So again, think about, where would a big buck really want to ride out the winter? Somewhere that he can just get through the winter easily, have everything he needs, not be harassed too much by predators. And those are great places to zero in on, because that's where he was, and that's a good chance where he's going to drop his antlers. So yeah, think like a deer and try and put yourself in their shoes. As far as things to look for, one, I would recommend get a set of binoculars, because you may not be looking very far away for blacktail sheds, but it helps you pick out what you're looking at, right? So I mean, you might only be seeing tines sticking up from behind a log or out of a bush. You might only see the white base poking out amongst some rocks or snow, but there's a lot of sticks that'll trick you too, right? So instead of just, it's good to go walk over and inspect anything that looks out of the ordinary, but your binos will help you sort of confirm or deny what something is without having to walk over. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've seen something off, downhill, like at the base of a big tree, and you're like, oh, that kind of looks like an antler, but it's probably just a stick. And then you put up your binoculars on it, and you're like, damn, that's an antler. So, it'll help you just sort of confirm what things are, and save you a lot of time walking up and down to look at sticks. So as I was just saying, you don't always just see a full antler just sitting out there, but you also want to be looking in things. So like, if there's brush, look into it. Like, don't just walk by it and look on the sort of the the perimeter of it, look in, because bucks could be like raking their antlers on that bush, and one pops off and falls inside. Maybe they're just feeding and it just happens to fall into the bush. Look between tight trees. I actually found a really nice matching set of brown blacktail sheds hunting a couple years ago, and I found one behind a boulder as I was walking down this game trail, and then I just started doing loops to see what I could find, and I found his other antler stuck between two smaller trees. So you could tell, maybe he was trying to pop it off, but he got his antler wedged between those two trees, popped off, and there it sat like 3 feet off the ground. So I found that to be pretty interesting. Similarly, you can find hanging sheds once in a while. Not necessarily in a bush, but sometimes you'll find them sitting on top of some logs, or maybe in a tree branch, or maybe sitting on top of the brush or the bush. So those are always kind of cool to find hangers, but it doesn't happen that often, but kind of cool when it does. I would say too, you don't always have to look for, or you may not always find a shed in a bed. You might just find them like in vantage points, right? So like I was saying earlier, if there's somewhere a buck wants to hang out and look for just danger below and have the wind in his favor, maybe they just hang out there. They don't necessarily bed there, but they stop while they're doing their routine. They look down. And so I like bluffs, right? Because I just think that the deer sit up in the bluffs or pass through and just hang out in the bluffs and look downhill, obviously, with the wind in their face and just looking for danger. So those are great spots as well to look for sheds, so they can pop off while they're standing there. I should have said it earlier, but look above and below beds. Sometimes you'll find them in the bed itself, which is nice and ideal. But I found a couple really good sheds, like 10 feet below a big bed on a steep hill, right? Because he'll just be laying there doing his thing, hanging out, pops an antler off, and it'll roll downhill. So just because you can't see it in the bed, you really should stop, go right to the edge if it is like on sort of a bluff or a vantage point or something. Put your binos up and just scan all below, because you might see some brown tines just sitting down in the bush below it. And look above the beds, because these deer also bed above the big fir trees in the big timber, and you definitely can't see all the beds from below. So you gotta want to go up and go around. And again, that's doing loops and covering new lines, and look down, because I've also found a handful of good sheds. Like here's a little example. That's a deer bed right there. And if he's above that antler is going to sit above the tree. So when I'm walking below looking up, I may not see that antler. But if I'm above looking down, I got a good chance of seeing it. So again, that's check in the beds, check below the beds, because the antlers will roll out of the beds and down, and check above bedding areas as well, and at the base of some of these big trees. Other good areas for looking for antlers are crossings or impact spots where a deer is going to, for example, if he needs to, if a game trail crosses a creek, he has to jump over that creek. When he lands, that impact of him landing, an antler could pop off. Big deadfall trees, they got to jump over that. For sure, when they land, antlers can pop off. Actually, I found one a couple years ago during hunting season, and this big old tree fell right across a heavy game trail, and you could see it was it was September or October, so it had been sitting there since the winter, but it was brown and a big heavy 4-point, but the squirrels had got it because it sat there for so long. But you could just see the story as it played out. He had to hop over this big dead tree, hit the ground, his antler popped off, and he just kept going. What else? Steep trails. So big, steep, rocky game trails. I find antlers on them all the time. And I think it's just because, if a buck is running downhill down these steep trails, he's sliding and hitting rocks and whatever. And just the impact of all that makes antlers fall off as well. So whether they're running up or down those steep game trails, I'd look for those, and they suck to hike. But yeah, definitely a hot spot for finding antlers. Maybe a bit more of an obvious tip, but I kind of touched on it already. But you definitely, absolutely have to look behind logs and rocks and bushes. Can't tell you how many times I've shed hunted zones for multiple days. And all of a sudden you look behind a log and you're like, geez, how did I not see that? And it's not your fault. It's just line of sight, right? Like antlers aren't that big, even the big ones. And if they're not laying out in the open, it doesn't take much to hide it from you. So it takes time. And, I don't think shed hunting is really about just walking straight through the woods. You have to like zigzag, you have to grid, you have to do loops, and you have to look at all the different angles and perspectives around all these rocks and logs. And it can be tedious, but if you enjoy doing it, that's why you're out there. And you know that there could be a big old brown shed sitting somewhere. Shouldn't really be a burden to check all these zones because you know they're out here. And I actually get stressed out when I think about how many nice sheds I probably walk by on a regular basis. So I try to do my best to really grid it out, loop it out, not walk same lines. Or even if I walk generally the same line, just come from the opposite direction, like on my way out at the end of the day or something. Because that'll show me, again, fresh angle, fresh perspective on the ground and all the dead logs and the rocks, etc. So after you find a shed, congratulations, but don't move. Just stop and look around. Look right at your feet. Look in the immediate area behind logs and rocks. That other side could be there. I picked up a set a week ago, actually, and I stood right beside it. The first one I didn't even see, standing right on top of it, but it was just a little log that blocked my view. As soon as I looked down at my feet, I saw it, stepped over the log, started taking pictures of it, and didn't even notice right to my right was a match set, like 4 feet away. And it wasn't even camouflage. It's just I was so pumped up and focused on that one antler, I missed the other one. I mean, I found it, obviously. But what I'm saying is if you find an antler, stop, especially a brown. The other one could be like right there in the immediate vicinity, or you could have packed it 2 kilometers in another direction and good luck finding it. But if it is in the area, don't take off. Just drop your pack, set a waypoint on your little GPS app, and start doing circles until you feel like you've covered everything. After you've found a shed and you've had a good poke around to see if you can't match it up, think about it. Just, was it on a game trail? Was it on a bed? What direction do you think that buck was going? You must be able, sometimes you can kind of see the game trail and figure out at least where he was coming from and maybe where he was going to. So then you can backtrack that trail for a while, and you can also follow that trail for a while. And again, maybe you never find the other side. Maybe the other side's sitting in the middle of the game trail right there. Or maybe it's the next set of bluffs over and another set of beds, and that heavy game trail is going to lead you right to it. So just think about what the buck was doing when he dropped his antlers, what direction he might have been headed in, maybe where he's coming from. And that just helps you zero in a bit, right? Instead of just sort of haphazardly walking around hoping you come across it. Just think about it. Where is he coming from? Where is he going to? And if you never find that match antler, don't freak out. Don't get all discouraged. You can go back another day. I do that all the time. For whatever reason, I'll find antlers at the end of the day, and then, I'm pretty tired and burnt out, and I'll have a look around for the match, see if I can find it or another antler. But I know I'm tired, and I know if I go home at the end of that day and get rested and come back, I'll have a fresh perspective, and I'll just pick up the trail where I last left it, which is where I found that first side. So yeah, don't be afraid to walk away, and don't get frustrated if you can't find it, and just come back another day and pick up the trail and keep going. And as you begin to find more shed antlers in your zones, every time you find an antler, drop a waypoint in your app. And it's going to help you, obviously it's going to tell you where you found that shed. And over the years, maybe even over the season, but definitely over 2 or 3 years, when you open your app and look at that zone, you're going to start to see clusters of your waypoints where you're finding antlers. And that shows you patterns. And it's amazing how you can go to a mountain and it all looks juicy. But when you look back at your app over the years, there's for sure 1, 2 or 3 secondary spots where you pick up all your antlers. And everything in between looks good, but you never find sheds. So maybe instead of chasing a specific buck, which is ideal if you have that level of familiarity with your zone and your deer. I kind of chase zones, like spots where I pick up sheds. Like, I know if a buck shed here one year, another buck might shed there the next year, right? So I just start building up this collection of good areas that I've picked up lots of sheds in. And before I go explore new zones every year, I do a bit of a circuit and I hit all my best spots. And that's what I was saying, like this year. Like last year I did so well in my spots. This year I'm not doing that great. And then yeah, after that I'll just, once I know I've hit all the spots that I have picked up lots of antlers in the past, then I'll start exploring and trying new zones. And that can pay off as well. But it's tough when you're in a new zone and you know you haven't gone to your honey hole, or one of them anyways. All you're thinking about is, oh, why am I here and not in my good spot? So it's good to just go hit your zones, your good zones that you got lots of antlers out of in the years past. Pick up what you can. If you can't find any more, then just pull the plug and start looking for new spots. So pay attention to your timing. You want to know when your deer are dropping their antlers, right? And in the beginning, when you're just figuring it out, you may not know that. But year over year, and if you leave trail cameras and that sort of thing, you start to see the deer's patterns or movements when they start to show up with no antlers on their heads. And if you're after browns, I'm happy to pick up any antler, but man, I really want to pick up browns and I really want to find big ones all the time, which I don't. And it's a challenge, but it makes it that much sweeter when I do see a big brown antler sitting there. But you're also racing against the clock to some degree. Hopefully it's not other shed hunters in your spot, but squirrels are my nemesis. I hate it when I find a big fresh brown and a squirrel started chewing on it already. It makes me mad, but it's part of it. So what I like to do is try and hit my spots as soon as the snow is melted enough that I can actually see the antlers on the ground. So I'm just trying to time that little window. It's a balance where I know they're shed. I know I can get there physically. It's not too much snow, or it's melted off enough that I can get there. And that I can actually even see the sheds. Like I'm in one of my spots now, kind of frustrated. I thought for sure the snow was going to be melted off at the top, and it's still not. Which means I'm going to have to come back again because I know there's possibility that there's some brown sheds sitting under the snow up there, especially with the winter we had. So you want to be aware of your snow conditions. Pay attention, right? Maybe it's something most people don't pay attention to on the regular, but you want to think about when the bucks shed, not just when you want to go shed hunting. So like this year, we got a ton of snow in like December around the holidays. Bucks weren't shed yet. So we had a ton of snow, and then we didn't get any snow for like 6 weeks. And that was a shedding window. So all those antlers probably fell on the ground, and then we got a couple more snowstorms, so then they got buried. And the other part to that is, I bet you, because we didn't really have that much snow by the time they were shedding, I mean, compared to like a normal winter, man, maybe they aren't even hanging out in these wintering zones where I normally find them. Maybe they weren't restricted, right? So they just peeled out, went to any mountaintop in the area, which is too much. Like there's no way I could cover it all, but I'll try. So maybe that's why I'm not finding many decent browns this year, because they're just spread out. They had no reason. The snow didn't bring them down into these wintering areas where they normally hang out. So, but it could just be an excuse that I suck at shed hunting. But you want to think about that, right? You want to think about it ahead of time, not trying to remember later if what the snow is doing and how that may have affected the bucks. Pay attention in the winter when it's happening, right? Even write it on your calendar when snowfalls happen, so you can look back. And a little verification for that is your trail cameras. And that's one thing that got me really thinking about this year too, was I could see over the course of the winter snow, and then all the snow disappears, and then more snow, and then all the snow disappears. So it's very inconsistent, the snowfall this year, and that can really affect what your deer do and where they're going to be dropping their sheds. So you need to pay attention to that. And, keep in mind that you are in the wintering zones, and you're probably going to run into a bunch of deer. So you just want to be mindful of that. They get stressed out. They've had a long winter. They're trying to build their energy up here in the spring. So just don't harass them, right? Don't push them. If you go into a spot and there's a few shed bucks, for example, or even does, um, just give them space. You don't have to like push them out of the area so you can look for your antlers. Like let them leave on their own accord. I'll even leave for the whole day. I'll just say, okay, well, that's enough. There's too many deer here. I'll take off and I'll come back another day, and they're usually gone. But yeah, I just don't want to put too much pressure on them and harass them. It's not necessary. You got plenty of time to find their antlers, and just give them space. I'd say most people, like just average people who don't hunt or shed hunt, don't necessarily think of this right out of the gate. But sheds to some degree, I mean, they are like a renewable resource, right? So, I mean, every year new antlers fall, which means if you can find a good spot and you pick up a bunch of antlers in there one time, you should go back there because there's going to be more antlers falling off the deer that year. Maybe you don't find as many because you're actually just looking for browns and not, past year antlers. And yeah, that's a good way to like kind of find the browns, is find a good spot where bucks have shed year over year for a long time, and pick up what you can, and then go back in there every year and look for their browns, because they're going to be falling. You may not find the exact same bucks and same with the same antlers shed, but you might. What's good for one buck might be good for another buck, right? So you might find other antlers, and who knows what you're going to find that year. But if you're not finding any browns, which is me this year, I feel like no big ones anyways. Found one, but I want more. And what I think is happening is the lack of snow that we had and the way it fell this year sort of displaced the deer. So that the antlers are out here somewhere, but maybe not on this mountain. I don't know. I just walked the other side of the mountain this morning, and I didn't find anything either. Lots of sign, but I think there's too much snow. And predators, maybe if the wolves move in pretty heavy, they'll displace your animals a bit and push them around. So that's an extra burden that you don't want to, another reason not to harass the deer too much if they're constantly trying to run away from the wolves and cougars and stuff. But if you got a heavy year for wolf activity, for sure, if it's too easy for the wolves to run around in an area and picking off all the deer, I got to imagine the deer will leave and they'll go higher elevations or go deeper in the snow, or they'll go steeper and rockier, and whatever advantage they can come up with to try and protect them from the wolves. So think about that. So the strategy I use to try and give myself a bit of an advantage is I try to go the extra mile. I try to go harder. I think most people are going to go to try and find some deer antlers. I know there's some pretty hardcore shed hunters out there and around, but I don't know. I think it's an advantage. Like if someone just goes out once a spring and never finds antlers, it's because you're not out there enough. But if there's other people who are, a little bit obsessed with the finding the biggest, brownest shed they can, like I spend all my free time now just crawling around the mountains looking for antlers, and I got to think that's an advantage. It's like anything. The more time you spend in the woods, even if you're just deer hunting, the more you get out, the better chances you're going to have, and the better chances you're going to have to find big ones. Everyone can get lucky once in a while. Blind squirrel can find a nut, but I think if you want to pick them up consistently and get a whole bunch of them, there's no replacement for just being out there doing it. So I just try to, go a bit further, a bit higher, a bit steeper, a bit more often than the average person, and I got to think it helps. At least I think it does. And the last piece of advice I would leave you with is that you're never going to find them all. So don't get upset if you can't find them, or you're not finding as many as you think you should. I guarantee if you've picked up a couple antlers in a spot, there's more for sure. But you just gotta you gotta get after it and you gotta go look for them. But you're never gonna find them all. They're just. I still find old sheds in my spots. And it just blows me away. Sometimes I gotta wonder if it's not the wolves and the coyotes and bears and stuff moving them around, because you think you thoroughly grit everything out, but they're always there to be found. So just keep that in the back of your head. If you're getting discouraged, they're out there. You just got to keep going, keep picking new lines, keep doing your loops and grids and zigzags, and keep your eyes peeled, and take a break when you're getting frustrated and just clear your head and get back after it. But I love shed hunting so much. It's crazy how much it's sort of crept in and taken over everything else. I used to be obsessed with fly fishing and steelheading. I'm still like super obsessed with hunting, just trying to get my big buck. But man, shed hunting is just, it's what I want to do every time I come out here. Just grind and look for sheds. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because it's not a super popular thing to do and not everyone's doing it. But I love the exercise you get from shed hunting. I love the rush you get when you spot a shed, especially a big one. I get so pumped on that. And just the knowledge gained about your area and where you're hunting, right? Like, where are your bucks and what are they doing? And it's all connected. And, you know, like I said, it's super healthy to get all the exercise and just be in the outdoors. So I wish you all the best, all the luck. Find big blacktail sheds. It's not easy. I bet you if you find one, you're gonna get the bug and be pretty addicted to it. So all the best, good luck, and we'll talk to you later.